Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
So everything we do is driven by emotion, whether you want to admit it or not. Some men would say, "Oh, I don't, no emotions here." You buy something. It was motivated by emotion. That's just a piece of it. Everything we deal with is connected to emotion. Sometimes it gets the best of us. Sometimes that emotion goes deep inside of us and can muck with our energy as well. How do we navigate that? How do we My best description here is put an emotional force field up so we don't run into challenges that we shouldn't need to deal with. This is all part of a book that she's working on. She's an amazing life coach, and I want to pick her emotional brain today. Laurie Kroeger joins us. How you doing?
I am doing great. How are you today?
I'm good. Yeah.
Good.
And this now tell us about the book before we go anywhere. What's the title of the book you're working on?
So the book is called Smile Now, Cry Later, A Path from Emotional Resistance to Emotional Resilience.
Hmm. How do you define emotional resistance and emotional resilience?
So it's funny you ask, because that was the first thing you said. Putting up the wall is emotional resistance. Trying not to feel those emotions, understanding, saying things to yourself like, well, I shouldn't feel this way. This is dumb. Why am I feeling like this? Or why am I behaving this way? That's the emotional resistance. It's where we don't want to express it. We just want to ignore it. Well, that's where we start bottling our emotions and then we explode because we can't hold them in all the time. Emotional resilience is really about allowing yourself to feel those feelings and get through them. And it's coming back. It's how you're going to bounce back stronger and become more resilient.
So it's allowing yourself to feel it, purge it, if you will,
Exactly.
and recover from it, as
Yes.
opposed to feeling it and falling apart. And
For an extended
in a
period
period
of
of
time.
time. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with, just being like, "Oh, I can't believe it." And you pick yourself up and move on. Not always easier said than done.
Exactly. And it really is. So one of the things that prompted me to finally start writing this book, because it's been on my mind for a minute. I had 3 weeks of just a very, very full schedule. And 3 days before we were supposed to be going on vacation, I lost my dog.
Mm, sorry.
And I had a speech and a presentation to give, and it was hard. And the worst part was on a Saturday night at 10 p.m., I had to put my dog to sleep. She was 9.5 years old. She was my baby.
Yeah, I'm
And
gonna
I
cry.
loved her to
I'm gonna lose it. I'm not even. I get it. I get
and I
it.
said my goodbyes, but it was still hard. Then I had to be up at 4 o'clock the next morning to get ready for the day. And I had to face the world again. And
Mm.
so really thinking about, well, how do you do it? Yes, I could have absolutely called off sick. I could have taken a couple of days and mourned my dog, right? And that would have been absolutely 100% acceptable. I chose to understand that I love my Kylie, but she was my past. I could not change the situation. I couldn't bring her back to life, but I could move forward and do the things that I needed to do. That doesn't mean there isn't still a ping in my heart every time I turn around and walk out the door to say, where's my dog? I keep expecting her to run down the stairs and come outside, and she's not there. But it's understanding that I gave her the best life that I possibly could, and knowing that I can't change where we are.
Hmm.
And I was able to continue moving forward to do that.
It's such a cliche, but when people say, "Well, look on the bright side," kind of what you're doing. You're
A little
looking.
bit,
I'll let you know,
except
but
the difference between looking on the bright side and emotional resilience really is taking the time to feel the feelings. for me, I've gotten really good at exaggerating those feelings. I can exaggerate those feelings, and I cried it out for like an hour and a half until there were no more tears. And that's a technique that I use that works for me.
So in doing that, do you feel that allowing yourself to process it was the game changer?
It was absolutely. And knowing that, you know what, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be angry. You know, I was angry with God. I was angry with the world.
Sure.
My dog was only 9.5 years old. She shouldn't have died. And she died of natural causes, you
Right.
know? And so, but I fast tracked myself through that process because I knew I had things I had to do. And that takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of trust in yourself to be able to do that. And then having somebody there that you can lean on, who's going to support you, but allow you to go through it without judgment. And I had that person.
Ultimately, that person is you.
Ultimately, it is, yes. 100%. If
It
you
is.
trust yourself and you build that trust, and that's inside my book, is really understanding what that self-trust, that self-worth, all of those pieces build emotional resilience.
How do you know? Here, deeper question alert. How do you know when you're good? When you know something has happened, it hurt, process. How do you know when you're done processing and like, all right, I'm good. And now's the point where I'm going to move on.
When you can touch it,
Say it again.
when you can touch it, when you can talk about it and say, I went through this and it is no longer a trigger for me. You know, that very first day, even though I went on about my business and somebody asked me how I was doing, there were tears. You know, I wasn't fully through it, but I was still able to move forward. And when I was able to finally talk about it, like I'm sitting here talking about it with you, there's no more tears. There's no more. And this was 3 weeks ago. You just lost my dog 3 weeks ago. You know, but number one, being able to talk about it and to express that, yeah, I was sad. Yes, I was angry. And having that conversation, it's kind of like bringing shame into light. You know, when you bring in the hurt and you bring in the sadness and you bring it to the light and you talk about it, you're able to recover from it quicker.
Deeper question
It's not
alert.
the poor me. It's not the poor me. I lost my dog. I'm sorry.
So here comes a deeper question.
Okay.
How do you know, when you're doing this and you're processing it? How do you know that how do you know you're not fooling yourself?
That's a good one. I have asked myself that several times. There are times when I thought that I was being emotionally resilient and just getting past it. Especially when, like, my husband would piss me off. Okay. We all have one of those, right? Our significant others often tick us off. Well, I would brush it to the side. I didn't actually process or understand what it was that was making me so angry. I didn't talk about it. I didn't feel the emotions. I stuffed them. And you can know that by how you feel. Is your heart racing every time you see or hear something related to that topic? Does your blood start to boil? That's when you know you've stuffed the emotion. You have not actually come back from it. You've not processed what has happened.
Okay. Wow. Um, do you feel that most people are resistant?
Yes. Yes. Most people, they're either very, very resistant or they are stuffers. And you kind of, it's a balance between the resistance, just not feeling it, not acknowledging it at all. And then there's no empathy, there's no sympathy, there's no compassion because you've just shut down your emotions. versus the stuffing, where then eventually you just explode because you're not willing to address the emotions.
Yeah.
And that's where anger comes in. That's where we cause a lot of problems in our lives. We start using drugs or alcohol to numb those emotions that we don't want to feel.
Point. No, nobody talks about that. What you're saying there, why people gravitate towards substances. I don't believe it's widespread enough. I think, people just don't process why they're doing it. And I'm not judging anyone, but
No, I've been
why,
there, done that. I played that game.
why is it being done? You're trying to numb yourself to not want to deal with certain things. And I get it. It's not easy, especially when it's emotional stackage. Like, here's one thing, and there's another, and then there's another. I call it the backpack. The emotional backpack. Hell with that, throwing it back there, zip it, throw it back there, zip it up again, and then after a while, tip back because it's so damn heavy on your back because there's so much going on in that backpack.
Well, and that weight is what keeps you laying down in bed and not wanting to get up and take a shower.
Yeah.
That's where the depression starts. And then you start looking for things that are going to give you energy, or things that are going to make you feel good. And so in my book, Loving You is Easy, Loving Me is Hard, I talk about that journey where I had given up custody of my daughter. I lost custody of my son. I got involved in drugs. I tried to commit suicide. I almost lost a son to suicide. There are so many reasons that I should be, or I could be sad or depressed, or I could be laying in bed doing absolutely nothing with my life at this point. I have plenty of excuses. I have plenty of stories to tell. But I made a decision that that's not the life I wanted to live.
What was your turning point?
When my 17-year-old decided to tried, he actually made the decision and tried to commit suicide. That's when I realized let's say that's the catalyst that made me decide to help other people. Through my process and my journey, there have been little pieces, probably for about 10 or 15 years up to that point. That's where it all started to come together.
So if somebody wants to become resilient, they've realized, yeah, I'm just burying this stuff. It's time. What if you could say three things? This is the three things you really need to do if you want to become resilient. What would they be?
Number one, talk about it. Don't hide it. Number two, allow yourself to feel the emotion. And number three would be to look at the bright side. Look at the lesson that you can take from inside of it and how you could use that to help someone else.
I guess it goes back to when we talked about this once before, gratitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
In everything, not just that situation, but the practice of that positiveness, that gratitude, where and being intentional about it.
Very. Intentionality is important.
Because a lot of us, we can say, I am grateful. I am. And I don't think somebody saying that is not, but to really feel it and feel the joy of gratitude as a like somebody with a gratitude journal. All right. Yeah. I woke up.
Checked off the list. I did my gratitude today.
Right. Three things while you're shaving, brushing your teeth, whatever it is. Yeah, one more. Put the book away and you're off. No, but sitting with it and thinking, taking 3 minutes instead of 30 seconds, I feel is the game changer. I don't know if I shared this with you. Somebody recently told me, because I write in a gratitude journal in the morning. I thought it was a good idea. And they said, no, you know what? Do it before you go to bed. Because now you're setting an intention for the following day.
Mm-hmm.
You're also processing it while you're sleeping. And do it while you're sitting on your bed with your feet on the floor because you're grounded when you're doing it. I'm like, I can't dispute it. It all makes sense.
Have you
Uh,
started sleeping better?
I haven't done it yet. I keep forgetting because the day goes
It
on.
will actually help you to sleep more soundly as well.
I agree. And it's like it's on me, duh. And this is like 2 weeks ago because I'm like I get to the point where, phone call, it's phone call. Now it's time for bed. Now it's getting late. And it's like, all right, now I'm really tired. I'm gonna go to bed. And then I just don't do it. And then I forget. So I need to set the intention. Tonight will be the night. Gotta get done.
Okay, I'm
And,
going to
and
ask you about it next week.
thanks for the accountability.
That's what
And
I
they
do.
actually said, he actually said, 14 days, you'll start to notice a difference if you
You
do
will.
it that way.
You will. Absolutely.
Hmm.
And I reflect on the good things. So when I do my journaling in the evening, I reflect on the good things that have happened throughout the day, the things that I'm grateful for, the things that I feel like I did really, really well. When I journal in the morning, I reflect on things that I would like to improve upon and do better.
Hmm. So you journal, and what are we talking about gratitude or just journaling in general?
So gratitude in the evening
Ah,
and journaling in the morning
hmm.
so that
I
I
might
can set my intention for today. These are the pieces that I want to improve on today. This is how I am going to be better today than I was yesterday. But
I'm
that's not what I'm going to bed with. I'm going to bed with the things that I'm grateful for, the things that went really well.
so I love detail. When you do this, do you have a separate gratitude journal and a separate journal?
I do.
Okay.
I keep them separate. I like to go back and look at all of the good things. And sometimes if I'm having a night where I'm just not feeling the gratitude, it happens. I look back and I'm like, okay, these were now it sets the mind to be able to draw in the good things that happened that day. So when I'm going back and I'm looking at my journal,
Mm.
I can look at the things that now I've improved upon and I can include that in what I'm grateful for.
I get it. And there's been, some times where I look and I'm like, all right, I gotta write 3 things down. And not that I'm not grateful, but it's like I want to go deeper. And, sometimes it's like I'm grateful for the sun. Like it's that sunshine. Feels good.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll even start with the things that I'm grateful I don't have. If I'm struggling, like, I'm really grateful that I don't have to worry about this, or this. I'm
Yeah.
grateful that, I didn't have to play in the rain today.
I never
Because
thought
I
of it that
love
way.
rain. So sometimes it starts with the things that I am grateful that I don't have.
I never thought of it that way because I always try to gravitate toward the positive, and to me that sort of seems like a negative.
It is, and that's how I draw out my positive.
But do you write? I am grateful for the fact that I didn't have to run through 15 puddles today in the rain.
No, that's just where I start process.
Okay.
And now I can think of, okay, I didn't have to run through it. So what was the good that came out of it? What about that am I grateful for?
Okay.
And
Okay.
that's where I start when I'm struggling to find those pieces that I'm grateful for.
Now I got it. Okay.
I'm not as consistent as I would like to be. I'd love to say I do it every single night, but that's just not real.
Isn't it? Yes. And isn't it amazing that when when you when you haven't done it, we get busy and you look back and 3 days have elapsed and you haven't written in it, you're like, what the blank happened? Where did that time go? How did 3 days go by? And then, of course, then there's a little bit of guilt that comes in there. It's like I was on a rhythm and then I missed 3 days. And it's like, I know I didn't write in it yesterday, but I don't know, it was like 2 days before that. It's amazing how time will just, pass us by unless
It
you're,
does. And we can let that habit slip really easy. I've gone 2 or 3 weeks where I haven't written,
me
and
too.
I've noticed that feeling in my body. Like you can feel the difference when you let a significant amount of time lapse.
Is it as simple as writing 3 things down? Being very intentional when I say
If
that.
you're being really intentional and you're allowing yourself to feel that gratitude, yes, I think 3 simple statements could absolutely do the job. If you're writing it down to check it off your to-do list, I don't believe that it has quite the same effect. It's still not
Right.
going to harm you. It's not going to hurt you to do it,
Sure.
but it's not going to have that same in-depth, emotionally resilient effect.
So getting back to that, when you're going through something, do you keep processing it? Situation you're dealing with. Do you keep going back to it till you get to the point where you felt like you purged it?
In some cases, yes, depending on how significant the event was. You know, again, go back to losing my dog. There are still days where, again, I process. I'm like, okay, it doesn't completely go away. It doesn't, it's still there. But I feel the love now versus the hurt, the sadness, and the anger. And it's that love that will sometimes draw tears to my eyes, but I can still talk about it. I can still go on about my day. And I have no fear about getting another dog.
Well,
So,
those
somebody
are
knows
happy.
where I can get another golden retriever.
A golden retriever?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My older daughter has one. Um, yeah, they're cool. Yeah. Um, it's it takes a lot to get there and understand all this stuff because we fall to pieces, we gravitate toward things to make us happy or numb the pain, or we just put it in the backpack and deal with it.
Yeah.
Um,
And this is where having a counselor,
yes.
having a life coach, having a therapist can help you move through those pieces. If you see that, well, I keep trying to do the emotional resilience and I keep trying to process. First, we got to get rid of the try. I am processing. I am working through the emotion. It may not always be working the way I expect it to, but I am doing. And working with somebody that you trust can help hold you accountable.
Sure.
It can help you to see where you are stuffing, where that might cause an explosion, and can prompt you to really focus on the processing piece and getting those emotions out.
How do we find you?
You can find me on Visible Potential, www.visiblepotential.com. And actually, starting here on September 15th, I am starting a 6-month emotional resilience course. And so, because it's not easy. It's not something that you can do in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks. And so I am starting an emotional resilience group session for
Cool.
that. So
Yeah, we need that. We do. We do. And life evolves. So you may have that stuff in the backpack. You got to take a few things out, process, take that.
yeah, don't try to dump it all at once.
And then there's that. And then while you're processing it, other stuff's going to come along. So it's how you deal with it. And not being negative. That's
Yeah.
life.
Well, and the
That's
fun part behind all that is that as you're pulling out and you're processing one, and these other things come along, you realize that you've learned from this one that you can now use for this one. And it becomes an easier process.
I'm not going to say I've mastered any of this, but I gravitate to two things. Nothing surprises me anymore.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. I really don't know. But where things would trip me up, like, oh my God, oh, like deal with it and just keep going. It's almost like finding Nemo and Dory. Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep going.
Yeah.
What's the alternative?
That's a huge key to emotional resilience.
What do I know? uh, However, you can't swim when you have a heavy backpack on.
Yeah.
So you got to work on that. And we all do. We all do.
Well, dude, there is no mastery here.
Yeah.
You just get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better.
Thank you for today.
You're welcome.
Super important stuff. Stuff that's not talked about. And I feel the course that you're working on, fantastic. The book is fantastic. Please don't stop.
Well, I'm hoping to have this thing edited and out the door here on Amazon in the next week or two. So
I'd be happy to spread the word
I appreciate
for
it.
sure.
I'll let you know when it's out there.
I appreciate you, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. And we'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.